Hey guys, welcome to another edition of The Tripod where we break down every NRL game every week from a betting perspective. And we're already up to round 7 and we've got ANZAC Day footy tomorrow. Luckily enough, it's a special day tomorrow and we've got to recognise why tomorrow is so important. If we do get the free time, we get to watch footy in the afternoon. So this is like the shortest amount of time all year where there's no footy. We had a game Monday and we're straight back into the action on Thursday. I will be here on my own breaking down the games. Usually I'm with Alex, but he is actually taking a little break himself and he's gallivanting around up north. But trust me, I have broken down the slate. I have deep dived on all the games. In particular, the games on Thursday, Friday, and even Saturday. I've got a bunch of best bets here that I'm going to share live with you guys. So get your pen and paper ready or your phone or your laptop, because I found some gems on the upcoming games that we're going to need to smash, and it'll be interesting to see how many of these lines move by in the next 30 minutes. I'm going to break down every single game one by one, but I just wanted to say one more thing about round 6. I recapped it on Monday, and you can check that out on this feed. But the theme of round 6 was 4 of the 8 games were basically decided by the exact line. So that just shows how key getting a good number is. You look at the Penrith versus Sharks game where the Sharks won by 4. Well, you could have got the Panthers +4. You could have had Sharks -3.5. So, and the Doggies game, Bunnies beat the Dogs by 8 points. Raiders beat the Broncos by 4, where that line was right about 4. So we had a lot of games, and of course even the Storm Roosters game, which was expected to be 50-50 and goes to extra time. So a lot of games that it just depended on whether you got a key number, whether you won or lost. And tonight there are a few best bets I'm grabbing where I feel like we're getting a very good number on a team, because at the end of the season we want to win more than half the time, but often the difference in our profit margin can be whether we win those close ones or not. So anyway, let's get into it. ANZAC Day tomorrow in the traditional clash. We've got the Roosters, who are absolutely flying after losing round 1, 5 in a row, playing the Dragons, who are one of the other form teams in the comp. They've got 4 wins in a row as well. And just a funny story, it reminds me actually, we've got an app where everyone can share their tips, and the beauty of this app, it's not only sharing tips in a community, but it records your stats and records success rate and makes it very transparent to see who's making money and who's not. And we put a lot of time into that. I think it was 18 months in the making. We actually were able to launch it on ANZAC Day a year ago. So it's like a year anniversary for the app. And we were all over the Roosters a year ago, and they were an underdog against the Dragons. And we were catching Roosters +2 and Roosters +1 in the first half. And we really liked the Roosters in that game. And next thing you know, the Dragons were up 18-2. Dragons scored a lucky try second half, which was a knock-on, but given a try, Dragons won the game by, I think, 8 or 10 points. And it's just funny because I remember we absolutely copped it for taking a heartless team in the Roosters, early in the season last year. It just goes to show how little faith there was in the Roosters. And sometimes, even when we're right, we still lose. So you can't win them all. This week, I'm going to let you know that we're actually going to be leaning on the Dragons, and I might as well just give you the best bets now and then explain my reasoning for the game. So I want to take the Dragons to score over 2.5 tries. That's $1.91 on Sportsbet. Now, I also need to apologise. We don't have the graphics with Alex being away. That's run through his Mac computer. It's not something I can run, so I am really sorry I can't put the best bets across the screen. So hopefully someone can be a good bloke out there and comment them. So I'll repeat that one. Dragons over 2.5 tries, $1.91 on Sportsbet. We're going to take the Dragons +4 points at $1.90 in the first half. That's on Bet Easy. We're going to take the Dragons to win a half. So you can win either half. $1.83 also on Bet Easy. We're going to take the Dragons +7.5 for the game. That's on Bet Easy and also on Unibet if the odds do move. And we're going to take the Roosters 3 unanswered tries, no. So that is in the score markets on Bet365. That's $1.85. So there's 5 best bets for the game. Let me know in the comments if you got any issues with that. As for why, a big factor for me, the key factor really is probably Luke Keary being out, not getting through the concussion protocol. As impressive as they were on Friday night against the Storm, Latrell can do a job at 5'8", and he's played probably half the season in 5'8", with whether it be when Cronk was out or other injuries that Keary has copped. But when Latrell plays 5'8", it takes a lot away from what he can do out in the centres where he is most deadly. TKO's back in this team at prop, but he's still got the back issues, whether he can play. The Dragons are unchanged. Really, the only improvement they can make to their team will be DeBellin when he comes back in, or if and when. That's a waiting game. But even without that, still one of the stronger packs in the comp. They've kind of know where they're at now without Widdop, and they've still got enough playmakers. And I think of the outside backs, just the fact that you do take Latrell out of the centres, I think their outside backs can hang in there against the Roosters. And I know the Roosters are the better team, but I think it should be a quality game. I mentioned both sides are, on big winning streaks, and I think it could be a little bit closer than expected, hence all the best bets. Let's move to tomorrow evening. We've got another kind of traditional game in the Melbourne Storm versus the Warriors. Now, this game will not be close, and this is another game I do have some best bets on. I'll read you the best bets, and I'll tell you why I think these are value plays. Let's take the New Zealand Warriors team points under 12.5. That's $1.83, and that is on Ladbrokes and on Neds. We'll take the Storm minus 13.5 at $1.91. That is on Bet365. I think every other bookie has this line at 14.5 or 15.5, so I want to grab the Storm minus 13.5. $1.91 on 365 now before that moves. And you guys know that we do not lay double digits or more in the NRL very often. So I'm going to get into why I actually do think we do lay the lumber in this one. I'm going to take the Storm second half handicap minus 6.5 at $1.90 on Unibet. And we're going to take either team to win both halves, yes, at $1.85 on Bet365. Now, clearly, when I'm betting on either team to win both halves, I'm betting on the Storm to win both halves, but at $1.85, it's better than some other bookies. And hey, there's a 1 in 1,000 chance that New Zealand wins both halves, and that bet would still win. But really, it's for New Zealand to get beaten in both halves. So that's $1.85. And the key factor for me is the news today that RTS is not going to be able to play in this game. On top of losing Fusatua, who I think is underrated. I feel like he's underrated. I think he led the comp in tries last year, so people should know how good he is, but he really is important for this team. Solomon Akata as well. So there's 3 absolute meter eaters on that side that are out, whereas the Storm are unchanged. I know Brandon Smith had a bit of a shoulder complaint against the Roosters, but he's been named, and to me it's the Storm's strongest 17. And I know that they wasted opportunities there, once they got the score back to 20-all against the Roosters. I think they'll actually be more disappointed by the fact they couldn't close the game out in the last 30 minutes against the Roosters than they will be by their start. Craig Bellamy spoke about that. He didn't think their start was that bad. A couple of errors, a couple of penalties, and the Roosters were just absolutely clinical and they were behind the 8 ball. But it's funny, if you look a little closer at the Storm, who are still top of the ladder, you go back a week before, they only won by 6 points up in Townsville. The week before that, they beat the Bulldogs by 2. So we're now nearly a month removed from the Storm playing a clinical game. And that's why I think that they will just absolutely run riot over the Warriors. If the Warriors had full strength guys, and if they had like their best player in RTS, you could make a case. Maybe they come out pumped and maybe they can hang in there. But with them being undermanned, I really think they are in for a hiding in this one. Hence some of the best bets there. And I mean, Blake Green has been named. It'd honestly be smart for the Warriors to hold him out of this one because I think it could be a bloodbath. So I'm seeing someone already saying the 7.5 has moved, but I think I did mention for Dragons plus 7.5. That's on Bet Easy and Unibet. So if it's moved to $1.83 on one of them, maybe make sure you get the $1.90 on the other. Okay, let's move to Saturday. And we have the Dogs against the Cows. So 2 sides that are kind of a little lower on the ladder than where they want to be. This is a Friday evening game at ANZ. And I don't have any best bets on this game yet, but I'll wait and see what happens. The huge news in this game is probably Jason Taumalolo being named in the reserves for the Cowboys. So, of course, we know how monumental he is to that side, but there's a lot of variability there. In the reserves, no guarantee he's going to play, Is he going to be back, or are they just giving the Dogs something to sweat over? And then, of course, if he does come back, there's no guarantee we get a full force of Taumalolo. He could play limited minutes. He could be a little under match fitness. So I'm not expecting a huge impact from him if he does play, but we know it's definitely an improvement. So it's one of those things where maybe you want to wait and see whether he's in or out because it's going to make a huge difference on kind of the way that you view this game. Look, the Cowboys really gutsy and, really big effort to win over New Zealand. Huge games out of a couple of their rep forwards, and Morgan was big. And they'll need Morgan to be the difference in this one as well, I think. after losing 4 weeks in a row, the Cowboys, to go over to New Zealand and win, I think they'd undo a lot of their good work if they can't beat the Dogs. But having said that, I actually feel these two sides aren't that far apart. If Taumalolo's not playing, I think the Dogs forward pack can actually match it with the Cowboys. We saw how miserable the Cowboys' outside back situation is. They got given a bath by New Zealand, and I spoke about on Monday, although we won a bunch of bets on the Cowboys against the Warriors, I think we got lucky in the way they hung in that game and the way the Warriors didn't take their chances. I actually think if Nick Meaney can get over this kind of split webbing finger injury that he had, which looked pretty bad, but he's named at fullback, he actually livens up that Bulldogs back line, and a couple other big outside backs like Remus Smith and Ockenbaugh, the new winger there, and even Hopewadi does a job for them in the centres. I think that's actually quite an edge to the Bulldogs in what should be a close game. So no best bets on this one. I do see it pretty even, and I will wait and see what the news is on Taumalolo. Let's move to Friday night. We have the Panthers hosting the Rabbitohs. Of course, the big news there is that Gus is out. The 5-year plan didn't go according to plan. I had to look back at it and wonder how many years was Gus actually there, and he was appointed in 2011. So that was May 2011. That's gone 8 years now. And obviously with Cleary there, they were butting heads, and Cleary got the final say. And good luck, Gus, I suppose. Not the biggest fan of him or his decisions that he's made, and he hasn't had the success that he promised. So he's out. I can only see that as a positive for the Panthers, honestly. If there were people butting heads at the top and not a unified front in terms of management, I can't see how that could have helped the team. Now it's Cleary's team, and it's all on Ivan Cleary there. He's shaken up his side a little bit. Dean Fare's injured. He's moved Wateni Zalesniak to the centres. That's Dallin, the better of the two brothers, the real star. Although Malachi's also on the wing, and he puts in every week. And Aikens moves to fullback. RCG still on the bench. I think they got the mix right. I think they played well enough to beat the Sharks. It was not really the combinations that was the issue. It was almost fitness and just not executing and not putting their foot on their throat. So I saw enough from the Panthers last week to actually trust them in this one. And this is going to be one of those games where at first glance, you're going to see a team that's won 5 out of 6 in the Rabbitohs, and they're unchanged. They've still got Kyle Turner playing in the centres. And you're going to see a Panthers side that's got 2 wins from 6, and you're going to assume the Rabbitohs should be too good. But I really can make a case. The Rabbitohs started the season really strong and full strength, and they haven't improved, and they've lost a couple of key players along the way. While the Panthers have started the season awfully, but 6 games now under a new coach, this is a desperation spot. They're at home. I think they're every bit as talented. I don't think they should be underdogs. So I've got some best bets here. In fact, I think they're going to win the game. But let me give you the best bets right now. We're jumping on 3 best bets, all on Bet365, who I think have the market just slightly skewed the wrong way. So we're going to go into the alternate line and take the Panthers plus 4.5 at $1.80. Now you can get plus 2.5 at $1.97, which is pretty good. But to buy that into 4.5 and get that extra key number when you saw what happened last week, that is worth it at $1.80. So we'll never give you a best bet lower odds at $1.80, but I think that is worth sacrificing that few cents on the win there. That's in the alternate lines. And then in the first half line, let's also take the Panthers plus 2.5. That's $1.82. So that is 365 again, first half, Panthers plus 2.5 at $1.82. And also in the first half, I think you find this under team markets, or it could be under first half markets, Rabbitohs team total under 10.5, so under 10.5 at $1.80 on 365. So I know that a couple of tries there, Reynolds is a bit of a dead eye, but I really think Panthers will be up for this, and I'll put my balls on the line and say the Panthers are probably going to win this game, and this is the kind of game where we're going to take the ugly side and we're going to trust that they will show up for this one and that they will get the chocolates. Let's move to Saturday evening. This game is a neutral venue. It's being played at Tamworth. It's the Tigers minus 2.5 against the Titans. So Madge hasn't made any changes to the Tigers that got absolutely destroyed at the new Bankwest Stadium, 51-6. It's hard to really change a side that gets blown out that bad. It's not like it's going to be 1 or 2 players' fault. The only change that I would have thought could be impending would be Benji back in this side, but maybe still not good to go with his hammy, so they stick with Reynolds and Luke Brooks. And I probably want to be on the Tigers here because the Titans have lost Ryan James for the season. You've got the Tigers off an embarrassing loss, so you know they should be up for it, whereas the Titans are off a big win, which is not usually a situation you want to bet on a team. Jared Wallace is still out for the Titans, but they do get back Kevin Proctor and Keegan Hipgrave, who were both scratched on game day, so they still probably have enough. And, injured player theory does worry me here if I take the Tigers, because I see these two teams as pretty evenly matched. And then, looking at a map, Tamworth isn't that much further from Gold Coast than from Sydney, but I will give a small home field advantage to the Tigers in this one, although both teams have to travel. So I believe the Tigers should be favoured. I probably would have made the line right around 2.5, so I don't have a strong edge. And when I spoke about injured player theory, that is basically where a key player gets injured, then the instant public reaction is to bet against that team because they've lost a key player. But the very next game, the team usually lifts, and other players around that position usually have big games to kind of make up for that guy being out, and the public overrates the fact that player's out. So you're better off to bet on teams that have lost a key player in the very next game. But what happens over the course of a season, in this case, over multiple weeks, you cannot cover for what Ryan James brings to this side, and it's going to hurt them, long term as well. That is a massive workhorse, a massive part of their middle that they're going to miss. So this week, they probably still have enough troops in the forwards. I spoke about Proctor and Hipgrave getting back into the team, and they got a bit of confidence. They've looked so much better with Ash Taylor and Tyrone Roberts in the halves, who they didn't have for the first 3 weeks, and they're getting better and better. And this is a team, the Titans, that were the last team to win a game in 2019, have now won 2 in a row and have got a bit of confidence. The Tigers kind of zigzagging. I think they can wash that one off in the shower on Monday, and I think they can come out and put up a good performance. I saw an interesting stat with the Tigers. I think they conceded 56 points in the first 5 weeks of the season, and then 51 on Monday. So that was crazy, and it was a bit out of character, but it's one of those days where the harder you try, the worse it gets. So I'm not reading too much into that game. I'm not writing off the Tigers. I think they're a really solid unit most of the time, and I don't have a best bet on this game because I can kind of make a case of both teams, and I think the line at -2.5, -3.5 is pretty fair. So stay tuned because the rest of the best bets are going to come out tomorrow when I deep dive a bit further. But for now, no best bets. Let's move to Saturday night. We're going to have some unpopular best bets here. We're going to take the Broncos, and I'll give you the best bets first, and then I'll make my case afterwards. Grab the Broncos to score over 3.5 tries. That is $1.90 on Sportsbet. Similar bet here, grab the Broncos to score over 20.5 points. That is $1.83 on Ladbrokes and Neds. Take the Broncos -3.5 at $1.92 on Unibet. I think every other bookie has moved to 4 or 4.5, or if there is a 3.5 on Ladbrokes and Neds, it's like 7 cents worse price. So -3.5 at $1.92 on Unibet. And also on Unibet, the Broncos to win the first half. So that's in a 3-way market, so they have to win it. If it's tied, we'll lose that bet. But to win the first half at $1.84 on Unibet as well. There's 4 best bets on the Broncos. Now look, James Roberts is back in the starting side. That is a big advantage. He is a guy who can be a live wire when he's healthy. A huge in for the Broncos return is Tavita Pangai Jr. back from suspension after that hit on Cronk quite a few weeks ago. Matt Lodge is in the reserves. He has a chance to return. Now they've still stuck with Darius Boyd, Milford and Nikorima. And for that reason, I think a lot of punters are not going to want to trust the Broncos and are going to want to stay away from them. But I think this matchup against the Sharks is a great opportunity for Brisbane to get back on track. They're under a lot of pressure. Coach Siebes, obviously, first season, they're under a mountain of pressure, but I think it's a good spot for them here. Even though they get 3 days less to prepare than the Sharkies, the Sharks are a mash unit, honestly. With the guys they've got out, and you have players like Dugan, Johnson, Fafita, Gallen, not 100%. They lost Nakora as well, so Sorensen's in, but that's another loss because that kid was really playing well. And look, spirited win for the Sharks to come back at home and beat the Panthers, which I spoke about. But I don't think that they match up that well against Brisbane. I think the forward pack will be stronger. I think Brisbane is healthier. Like, I can't overstate how much of an addition, adding TPJ and Roberts into the starting side could be for Brisbane. And I kind of spoke on Monday about the fact that things might not be as bad as they seem for Brisbane. They actually performed pretty well down in Canberra. There was, a couple unlucky bounces the ball here and there, like a try bouncing off the head of Jack White in there. And some of the other games they've lost to teams like the Roosters and the Storm, who are going as well as anyone. And they've lost to the Dragons and Tigers on the final play of the game. So, look, I know that I said this on Monday as well, but we are Broncos fans, although we've kind of had to put our fandom to the side and bet, with our head, not our heart. And look, if you want any more, reasons that we're not biased, Alex and I had money, a bunch of best bets on the Dragons to beat the Broncos in the finals last year. We went to Suncorp and we cheered on the Dragons because we had best bets on the Dragons. So we don't just bet on the Broncos every week, although we have been on them the last few weeks. And what can I say? We're on them again. So if you trust us, you can jump on those 4 best bets on the Broncos. Again, I think they're going to win the game here. Move on to Sunday. Manly versus the Raiders at Lotto Land. And it's the same Seagulls side that lost 12-10 to the Dragons and spoke about how they did get dudded, and the NRL's come out and admitted it. They should have got a penalty. At the end of the day, that penalty just gives you a sideline shot at goal to maybe tie the game, and then you have a 50-50 chance in extra time. But it's a rough deal in a very tough contest. And Manly are still playing tough, and they are showing improvement every single week under Des. But they're still limited in what they can do. Tom Trbojevic is still out. Adam Fanua-Blake is still out. And this Raiders side is the real deal. They're playing such good footy, and they look so different to what they did last year. And I didn't think the Raiders were going to make the 8 this year. And, I'm kind of kicking myself and saying, why didn't I see this coming? But I didn't know they were going to defend the way they did. I really underestimated how much of an impact John Bateman could be in this team. He's phenomenal. Charnze Nicoll-Klokstad, while I saw him play, I think, for the Cook Islands, and I was impressed by him last year. I mean, fullback is a hard position to fill. He's come in and he's been brilliant for them. And that's actually a key factor in this game because he got a scary knee injury against the Broncos. Looked like a classic hyperextension to me. And he's been named. And I'm inclined to like the Raiders in this game. I think they are the better team. And I think with no Fanua-Blake, no Tommy Trbojevic, that they could get the ascendancy in the forwards. And they've got a big advantage in the outside backs. But that advantage will be negated if Nicoll-Klokstad's not 100% or if he can't go. So I might even wait a little longer to just be sure he could play because the Manly side is so gutsy and they kind of embody the spirit of their captain, Jake Trbojevic. He's phenomenal, and their forwards stood up against the Dragons and they can stand up here. And with this game being at Lotto Land, I guess you've got to give an advantage to Manly as well for home field and for that surface. They're at least used to it. It's spoken about as being maybe the worst surface in the NRL, and I know the Raiders have a couple concerns, and that could be a real factor in a close game. DCE needs to have a big game. No one's name is set in stone for who's going to play Origin or who's going to partner Munster in the halves. A big game in a 50-50 contest like this for DCE could get him over the line. In fact, he's thrown his hat in the ring to be captain. You look at the Raiders halves, that's another area I underestimated, the move of White into 5'8". He's actually been really solid. I mean, even his name has been thrown into Origin calculations. I don't think he's quite there, but he's played really well at 5'8", where I didn't think he was that much of a playmaker, just more of a ball runner. But he is actually a dangerous running 5'8". Then Sam Williams playing his best season as well. So that's why I kind of like the Raiders, but I'm just cautious with the field conditions, the home advantage edge, and Nicoll-Klokstad's health. So I'm just keeping my powder dry. No best bets on that game yet. And final game of the round, we have Sunday evening, the Knights at home to the Eels. And this is a do or die for the Knights. They won in round 1 off a Edric Lee intercept in a close game against the Sharks. And they haven't won since. And they've named the same 17 that got rolled by the Gold Coast. And that includes sticking with Connor Watson, who I spoke about on Monday being really glaringly bad there in the halves. And look at the Eels. They improved their team with Fergo back in. And this is adding Fergo to a side that destroyed the West Tigers on Monday. Manu Ma'u is also a chance to return. So you've got the Eels just on the up and up. And they're just your classic confidence team that when they're confident, when they're putting in, and it starts with their defence, if they're defending and they're hungry and they're getting stuck in, then everything flows off that. Whereas when they're down on confidence, then you see what happened to them last year, and they got the spoon because they can give up a bit easy. They are kind of good front runners. And it's funny that the Knights, as if there wasn't enough pressure on them already, there's pressure on, the new recruits. There's a shitload of pressure on Brownies, almost got 1 foot out the door. They saw what the Eels can do. I think the Eels put up the biggest score of 2019. So they know what's going to happen to them if they're not on their game on Sunday. So I actually think this is a game where I look at these two teams and I just still can't believe that the Eels are that much better than the Knights. I think we knew the Knights would be slow to gel this season with so many new recruits, and that is in attack and in defence. The combinations take time to gel, but it's 6 games in now. It's backs against the wall. There's enough quality personnel, not just Kalen Ponga and Pearce in the back line, but in that forward pack, actually, they should have the edge over the Eels. And at home, this game is a bit like Penrith at home to Bunnies and Broncos at home to Sharks. I actually think all these sides are going to get upset victories at home. That includes the Knights. And while I don't have any best bets for you guys yet, I think I might just wait a little closer, or at least by tomorrow. I don't think there's people jumping out of trees to bet on the Knights. So I want to give this line a chance to get possibly even higher. But I think the value side is the Knights playing at home, as I said. I think while the home crowd isn't going to be so enthusiastic for too much longer with too many more performances, they're coming off not just 1 but 2 terrible losses in the game against Manly and then obviously the game at Gold Coast. This is it for them, and I do think that they will knuckle down and make it close. And they at the moment the line is I think 2.5. So even if we're just catching a few points with the Knights, don't necessarily have to win for the best bets to cash, but I think they probably should win this game. And I think that while the Eels are playing with a heap of momentum, I think they ultimately will still be limited by the kind of ceiling of their talent. You've seen what happens when they do get a roll on, but it's going to be very important for the Knights to start well after 2 really bad starts their last 2 games. So, and there's Tony saying he thinks the line will move to 4. And that's, a reason I agree that I don't think this line's going to move to 2 or below 2 anytime soon. So I'll just wait and get the best available line on the Knights if we're still confident. And that will do it, lads. So that's all 8 games previewed. I'll comment all of these best bets and I'll post them straight away in the Tripod app as well tonight. All the best bets that I've shared with you guys live. And then tomorrow I do an even further deep dive into all the games on all the bookies and get all the very best lines and prices for every best bet for round 7, as well as sharing the multis. And we made a good amount of money last week on best bets and on multis. Combined profit, if you're betting $100 per best bet and $50 per multi, is over $2,000 through the first 6 rounds. So we're happy with that, but we need to just keep working hard and keep taking good value. So have a great day tomorrow, guys. Enjoy the footy if you get the chance to watch it, and good luck on the punt in round 7. Thanks for tuning in.